So, good morning. This is Laura from Healing with Spirit. Happy New Year. It is January 1st, 2021. I almost caught myself saying 2020, but it's not. Not sure where, I don't know. I just look at numbers as just another way of communicating. Today's numerology is a 7, and the numerology for the year is a 5. I did something different last night in preparation. For those of you who are on Facebook, please check in. Let me know where you're at. If you're watching this on replay, please do the same because it does affect the algorithms, which is kind of really weird to have to say that. But if you don't engage, then the events don't get seen and then you miss them. So, but one of the things that came up was teach. So for those of us that are in a leadership role, or even just within our families, there's a teaching role here, whether as a student or maybe taking a class, or there's something around teaching that's going to be influential. The card for the either, I'm not sure if it's going to be for the year, I'm feeling for the year, or just for the day, is surrendering defensiveness. And what we talked about in the Zoom earlier is defensiveness. I mean, we saw this kind of happen in 2020 as a theme, where people were getting highly triggered on the, seems to be like on the regular. And what ended up happening is people missed maybe some pearls or some medicine that would have helped them catapult. So if you're stuck in defensiveness, you might be missing some of the medicine that is needed. So it's going to be very important to surrender the defensiveness. And what this card basically says is that defensiveness is a sign of weakness. To communicate in a more empowered, stay centered, and hear the other side out, basically, and then offer clear, non-defensive responses. So kind of a theme that we saw start in 2020. The cards that I pulled for the new year, moving into the new year, what we learned in 2020 is representative of the beetle energy, which is the 7 of cups for those of you who read tarot. That's a water sign, and it's talking about making necessary decisions in order to reach certain goals. Some of those are painful decisions. The card for the day is the painted turtle. And the card for the, I'm not sure if it's for the year yet. I have to sit with this longer. Sometimes I have to sit with these for 2 or 3 days. But at least I know for the next 2 or 3 months is the swan. And the swan being something that showed up earlier in this week. So this is where I'm feeling that it's going to be tied very heavily to the winter energies and how we utilize them moving forward with the lessons that we learned in 2020, and how do we move and navigate. So the winter is going to be setting the tone for the rest of the year in 2021. Now, just as a summary for 2020, and again, you can go to my blogs on my website, which is www.laurahealingwithspirit.com, where I've talked about, especially the first 4 months of the year, of the energies for 2020. But just to kind of give you a quick recap, 2020 was a 4-year, so you had like 2020 sight, but it's also about the duality, it's the balance. It was a work year. For those of you who have been following me, have constantly heard me say, like, this is a work year. There's no way around it. Like, we're either going to be doing it voluntarily, or we're going to be kicking and screaming like a 3-year-old and needing to, forced to do the work. It's like our mothers when we were growing up saying, you're not leaving the table till you eat your broccoli. I don't want to eat my broccoli. So that kind of scenario. We had a lot of shadows that got revealed. There was a lot of trauma. And so trauma healing was a big theme that played out in 2020. So whether it was personal trauma, generational trauma, karmic trauma. There was a lot of karmic debt that showed up for 2020, as well as past life trauma. So we were dealing and healing with about 1,000 years worth of stuff, very patriarchal, very colonized stuff. We were also forced, where I have seen an increase up until last year, of we were no longer able to spiritually bypass and avoid doing this work. So you couldn't bypass doing this work without serious consequences. All right. The deep, hard stuff was like pretty much in our face and we couldn't escape it. And even if we tried, what we did is we basically were self-harming and or self-shaming. We were pretty much self-harming. The remedy of what we learned in the beauty of 2020 was that we learned to really understand the power of plant medicine. We understood the need, even if we didn't enact on these things, we understood that we needed to be better stewards of our planet. We understood that we needed to ground more, to be more centered, to really respect and honor the ancestors, both the ancestors of our land as well as the ancestors that are within our veins, and learning to work with them and learning to tap into their wisdom. Also, the ideas and ideologies surrounding social justice. These are all things I put in the energy forecast and predictions for 2020 that you can check in if you wanted to check it out on my website. But the big one that really was striking out to me was the whole idea of decolonization and social justice around race relations and white privilege and white fragility. So this is, I don't really like going into those terminologies. That's not my expertise, but I kept seeing it as a trauma specialist as really, because I saw a pattern between like domestic violence and so I go to the threads. But it was surrounding the concept of a colonized mindset or decolonization. We also saw the need to balance out the yin and the yang energies, the light and the dark energies. So again, the 2020, it's the balancing, the tipping scales, right? And the idea and concepts of homeostasis. So for 2021, it's going to be a water year, and that's really going to be emphasized with what we just did with some of the cards that we pulled for today. It's a 5 year in numerology. We're going to go more into that on Zoom afterwards, so stay with us. So that means this is going to be a transition year. You want to think of like discernment. So now we had all these things that kind of came to light. Now it's knowing how to discern this information, right? It's identifying what's in alignment with soul and knowing how to discern that soul wisdom voice, that inner body wisdom voice versus our head voice, right? Or our wounded voice. So, and the water element is going to be very paramount for that. We're going to go into the water element, the importance of the water element after the Facebook Live and continue that conversation on Zoom. But there's going to be new opportunities, new realms, new dreams, and this is going to be amplified by the swan medicine, which is what we have been dealing with all week. So let's go into quickly, and again, actually, I'm going to go more into these on the Zoom because I'm looking at the time. So we're going to go into the benefits of the beetle energy, which, we got to think of 280,000 kinds of species of beetles. And, but the beetles also, when we look at this in the past, the beetles also can be eaten by the turtles. Turtles have a diverse diet. So it's I kept hearing like what's being devoured and kind of composted into 2021 moving forward. And the swan is the temperance. So the swan is now, how do we take this knowledge? How do we take what we're learning and how to discern all this? And how do we move forward in a very graceful manner. And it's got to be done through the winter months. Whatever we do through the winter months is going to set the tone for the whole year. So if we're in that self-sabotage for the next 3 months and we're not going to do the work, or we make excuses of why we can't do the work, and we don't make this work an equal 50-50 integral part of our life, it may or may not be as fruitful for you. Okay. But if you've been doing this and you've been trying, at least making the effort to, right? And maybe I know for me, like I'm concerned about my stamina. My stamina is really waning. And so, and I said, okay, well, if I can just put together a plan where I can find the happy balance. So I've upped my self-care, like I said on the Facebook Live the other day, where I've called in reinforcements because I feel it in my body. I'm not listening to my head saying, okay, Laura, you can muscle it up. I'm listening to my body saying, okay, this is a little much. Like we need to kind of pull back a little bit. And I go, but we can't. So how do we find the balance? So this is a time to try new things and experiment and to see what shows up without the need to be defensive, without the need to control outcomes or create expectations. So this is really about surrendering into the flow of things, not trying to control things. So I think when we look at setting goals, this isn't about setting goals based on, well, I want to buy a house by such and such a date, and I want this to happen by such and such a date. That's the wrong type of goals. The goals are going to be, how do I want to feel? How do I want to show up in the world? Those are the type of goals you need to be setting. How do I want to, if things come at me, how do I want to be? Do I want to be the pine tree that can snap and break? Or do I want to be the oak tree that is strong with strong roots, that with any storm that comes and hits me, I'm okay. I may lose a little leaves or maybe a small little branch, but I am strong and I weathered it very well. Okay. So those are things you want to think about moving forward. And so it's going to be a lot about balance, patience, grace, and yeah, I said balance. So obviously balance. I keep saying balance for a reason. So you really want to think of like how to bring in, if you're not sure, that inner child, that inner poet, that inner painter, that inner mystic, that inner dreamer. Like that's the part of you you're going to want to tap into moving into 2021. And again, we're going to go into deeper conversation about this after the Facebook Live and continue that on Zoom. So join us there for that conversation. So now what we're going to do is this all making sense to you all? Because make sure, and for those of you who are on Zoom, type in the comments and let me know if it's making sense to you. For those of you who are on Facebook, please type in the comments and I will definitely check them shortly. So I want to make sure that this is all making sense to you. So just let me know. So I'm actually feeling bowls right now. Yeah, I'm feeling bowls because bowls, I feel like create the ripples. Like the drum is very earthy. So the drum, I feel like I want to just kind of close out the drum. If I can reach there we go. So the drum to close out 2020, let's just say goodbye. And the bowls, because the bowls, I feel like they're going to be tight. Bye 2020 and welcome. And welcome 2021. So this is about vibrational alignment. So what I want you to do now is just get yourself centered, get yourself grounded, check your energy to see where you're at on a scale of 1 to 10. I know my energy was much better yesterday. It was a little tired this morning, but I feel like it's perking up. And I think that's just mostly I had a very long day trying to get things done. So, but my energy is probably around a 6 right now. My balance is still kind of frozen in my hips. So I'm just acknowledging that. And I'm acknowledging that whatever it is that's subconscious needs to be shifted and moved because my hips ache. So that's where you're going to look at, like, do you feel good there or does it ache? All right? So, like, where's your balance? Put that in the comments. Where is your energy on a scale of 1 to 10? And now, what I want you to do is just take that in breath, bring that in breath in. And we're going to work with turtle today. Okay, the painted turtle. And what I want you to do with that in breath, bring that into our power center. Okay, that's just below the belly button. That's in those reproductive organs. For those who identify as a female, that's your womb. For the male, that's your prostate. The reason why I go into the organs, because this is the balance of life. This is not about anything other than it's just tapping into those nerve endings and things like that that vibrate out. So bringing that in breath in the nose and into that power center, letting it sit there. And while you're there, inviting in the ancestors and their wisdom and their guidance. Asking for permission, and I'm inviting and asking for permission for me to be here today for the Massachusetts, honoring the land that I reside on, and asking for permission for the Massachusetts and the ancestors of the Massachusetts people to guide us, the ancestors of my lineage that come from Russia, that come from Denmark and Norway, and the Celts, and my Ukraines, and the Germanic people, as well as the Gypsy sides within inside of me, and asking those ancestors to also come and guide us today as we tap in and call in the messages and the medicine of the painted turtle. And with the exhale breaths, exhale out as that smoke, as that mist, like a movie screen, for you to be able to see what needs to be seen, for you to hear what needs to be heard. Whatever it is that needs to be felt, felt. The fire element is all about destruction, also creation. It's the primal energy. That's what sits in our bellies. And just allowing, just taking it in, we're using the breath and just inviting the wisdom, feeling your shoulders relax. And just allowing yourself to just be, recognizing any triggers or any unsettled energies within you, acknowledging them, giving them a little love, and allowing things to just be. The turtle is reminding us to have faith, to trust in the universe, trust in something larger than ourselves. Trust that all is where it's supposed to be. The trust that when we continue what we set out in motion in 2020 with the work that we have been doing, and all the lessons that we have learned in 2020, ancestors for their guidance and for their wisdom, giving thanks to our spirit teams, giving thanks to the painted turtle and the medicine that is offered, giving thanks to our own souls for showing up today. Honoring the wisdoms that are going to be guiding us moving forward and trusting and having faith in that path. Taking a deep breath in and bringing in that mist, anything that maybe you have sensed or felt or brought in, and bring it back into the center. Keeping what is needed to be kept, wisdom that you can tap in at any place, any who, anywhere, anyhow. Exhaling out through the feet. And composting what no longer serves us to our Great Mother. And allowing her to take and compost our shit and turn it into beautiful lotuses. The beetle taught us that. The beetle taught us how to go through the shit. Because that is how actually the beetles are birthed, in dung. So we birthed out of the shadows. And honoring that difficult journey that we all just completed in 2020. Taking that deep breath and that sigh. And exhale out through the feet, pushing all that resistance through. And do it one more time, breathing in. And exhale out through the feet. And one more time. Breathing all that in, all that mist, all that wisdom into the power center and push what no longer serves through the feet. When you're ready, you may open your eyes, move your hands, and move your feet. Check in and let me know where you're at. Let me know what's showing up for you. And what we are going to do is we are now going to go back to Zoom and we're going to continue the discussions there for the next 15 minutes or so on the medicine that these animals, more in detail, what these cards all represent moving into the next 3 months. In the meantime, Happy New Year to you all. Have a great day. See you next time. And if on Monday, if not sooner, have a great day. All right, everybody. So before I go into more detail, let's just do a quick check-in to see where you're at, Sue and Joan.
Go ahead, Joan.
Okay. I'm feeling pretty good right now. I've got Cody in my lap. He's demanding attention. I'm feeling good.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
Hi, Sue.
Hi, I had a little bit of, I found the bowls I couldn't have them too loud, but I don't know if it's my audio, but then if I turned it down, I couldn't hear your voice. So it was kind of a balancing thing, trying to find the right volume for the bowls and your voice for me. So I had difficulty with that for this first one.
So thank you for sharing that, because that's very important feedback for me to make sure that it wasn't on my end.
I don't know. Technology I
that-
find from other Zoom, the sound doesn't always travel. Whatever sound you're making, whether it's voice or created.
Yeah, so I thank you for sharing that. So what probably happened, because I forgot to turn on the original sound for the meditation portion, they have a new thing on Zoom that I keep forgetting. So that when you're doing music and stuff, it doesn't do that. So I think I forgot to put that on there. So I thought I did, but I guess I didn't. Because what happens is they can filter out the background sound. So it was my mistake. So it could be on my end. I'll have to check it on replay. So, but thank you for sharing that for me, because that I'll have to work on that to try to improve that if it is on my end. So thank you. So let me go into, did anything resonate with you with what I said so far about the 2020, 2021 energies before I go into the beetle, the turtle, and the swan energy?
I wanted to just clarify the surrender defensiveness. Is that for the year, or is that for, I just want to clarify what that one was
Yeah,
for.
so I pulled it for the year, but this is how sometimes I'm only being cautious on this because this is what happened last year. as I put together this thing, it took me 2 weeks to put together the energy forecast. I'm like, why? This has never happened. Why is it taking me 2 weeks? And then when I did it, because I felt rushed, because I needed to, I did think I put it out there on January 3rd, and I'm going, this isn't the complete picture, and I knew it. So I feel like the defensiveness is either going to be, because I think the swan threw me off. Initially, my intention was for the year. I want to say it's for at least the next 3 months. Okay, if not the year. And I think we'll get clarity on that in the next month or so. But I want to say that the surrender defensiveness is going to be something that's going to play out at least for the next 3 months. Because that's going to be still carrying over some of that 2020 energy for a little bit, you know. So I think we'll get a better picture at least at the end of the month, if not by March, if it's going to be for the whole year. Okay. So like I said, when I pulled these, I asked for the year, but when I pulled the swan as the year card, and everything was more or less painting, not getting a whole picture for the whole year, but more or less, don't worry about the whole year, focus on the next 3 months, because the next 3 months are going to dictate the rest of the year. So hence it kind of does tie into the whole year, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
But it's really about the next 2 or 3 months are key. So did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So the beetle, so again, going back to the beetle, so for those who read tarot, that correlates to the 7 of Cups in tarot. As I mentioned in the Facebook Live, there's 280,000 different kinds as far as I know. And so this card doesn't necessarily represent a particular beetle. It can be any beetle. It can be even ladybugs, okay? So it can be any kind of beetle. So this is something, this is about a reminder that we are on the right track. So this is something that started out in 2020. So this is like a carry out energy. So the beetle is really showing us a reflection, a lot of what we did in 2020. So this is where, you know, we started, it was learning to just, sorry, excuse me, I can talk this morning. He taught us on how to identify, how to clear, how to purge, how to heal, how to cocoon. So these are all the things that the beetles kind of have taught us. And one sacred beetle that comes to mind, you know, when we look at these energies, is the scarab, which is a type of beetle that is an ancient symbol in Egyptian culture. You'll see it all over the pyramids and things. So, which was really about new life and resurrection. This is why they had it in a lot of the tombs. So what this is saying is be realistic. So what 2020 was trying to show us was like, be realistic and pursue our goals if we wish to resurrect our life. And in this case, not necessarily our life. Like if you look at the Egyptian temples, it wasn't like the life that what we knew it to be. It was the new life of where we were going forward in being. Do you know what I mean? So I think we got to really define what our life looks like. If it's trying to go back to the old life, then we're missing the boat. Okay. So the scarabs lay the eggs on dung. So this is where I kept hearing like reminder that we must go through shit, which is what we did in 2020. We went through a lot of shit. Okay. And we learned to figure out how to compost that shit, which is why over the last few months, I've been doing those visualizations with the meditations of taking those lessons of what we've been learning and breathing out and giving it to our Mother Earth and letting her compost that shit. So like dung is makes great compost. That's why they use dung in farming, right? In organic farming, because it makes great compost. You have to learn to go through shit in order and fertilize stuff for things to flourish. So not only does the beetle come to mind, but the lotus flower that also grows through shit, right? Through that mud and muck and darkness, right? So the beetle wings also, like if you think of the beetle wings, right? When you look at the beetle, also I kept thinking of the wings like shields, right? So I kept thinking because they're hard, they're not fluffy like feathers, right? So they're a little harder on the edge. So they're hardened, they're exterior. So you want to think of like protection and shielding. So what we learned, at least with some of the lessons to amplify what we're doing, like the transition into 2021, was to make use of sacred shields for protection or healing or prayer, you know, in pursuit of like where we're going. So this is like learning how to harness that, how to like cleanse, right? Whether it's cleanse, doing a body cleanse, whether it's cleaning up our diet, whether it's cleaning out. There was a lot of people that got divorced in 2020 because they didn't know how to live together. It was easy kind of going through the facade of everybody going to their jobs and you were just being roommates. So when it came to actually being partners, it became difficult. So this is where the resurrection comes in, right? Because it's like we may mourn in the old life, but it's about how do we resurrect the life that really we were supposed to be here to come and do, okay? So now we move into the painted turtle, right? So in tarot, the painted turtle is, by the way, the beetle is representative of the water element, which is the element for 2021. So that's the element we're going to be working with throughout 2021. Now, the painted turtle, actually, believe it or not, even though it's found near water, it represents the fire element. And so like for those, you know, that have the fire sign, you're thinking of Leo, Sagittarius, Aries. You want to think of faith and efforts rewarded. So the painted turtle is probably like, I keep thinking of all the painted turtles I've had to like pick up and cross the road, you know, they're probably one of the most abundant, most common, most widespread types of turtles that we know. They can be found in ponds, they're found in swamplands, they're found in ditches, they're found in like low stream areas, you know, and trickle streams, not like raging rapids. So, and most of the time they're not spent in water, but they're spent near water. So like you will see them in a pond, but they'll be perched on a dead branch, right? So they're always bridging all these elements here. So what comes to mind when I think of the painted turtle is also, I think of being hardy. I also think of being adaptable. I also think of the cocooning because its house is its shell and it's that protective. Again, the theme carrying out from 2020 from the beetle is that protection. How do we build a protection? How do we shield? And well, guess what? The turtle's protection is what? It goes into its shell, right? And it also uses that to house. So, so what's present now, because I pulled this card for the present, so meaning for today. So this is, and so when I think of today in the grand scheme of things, like moving forward, and as a 2020 theme, like this is like for the next couple of days or the next week or so. So that would be like in the present. So it's like in those near days, okay? So if we continue what we set out in motion in 2020, as I said earlier, that what 2020 taught us, the lessons that we learned and the lessons that Beetle gave us, that we're going to have new opportunities, new things happening. There's going to be new things that are going to be birthed, right? So, and by the way, as I mentioned earlier, turtles can eat as part of their diet, small insects, part of their diet are beetles, right? So this also reflects the importance, though, of working together in groups, collaboration, working more on we versus me and I theme. So, and from what I understand from people that do astrology, that seems to be the theme playing out in the astrology realm too. It's going to be more, like from what I understand, it's going to be more technology, more like the Aquarian age. You think of like Atlantis and more we versus me. Okay, so that's an overall moving theme anyway, that it's going to be less about me and I and what I want, like from that egoic, selfish, like me, not like me in the sense of I need to take care of my vessel, because you still have to put your oxygen mask on first before you take care of others. So it's not to negate that. I want to be very clear. It's not to negate your self-care needs. I'm talking about the me things that are very superficial. All right. Like the house, the car, the materialism, and all that stuff needs to not be like on the forefront. Okay. So the significance of the 2 to 3 months of continued strong effort are going to be important in order to begin to see the payoff. So like the turtle, the irony is that the turtle has a 2 to 3 month symbolism behind it, and so does the swan. So this is why I feel like when you were asking me earlier, Sue, about the whole thing on like, is this for like just temporary or is this like the whole year? It's kind of like what I kept feeling the more I sat with this. It's like, this is the theme. Like we really have to work hard at this the next 2 or 3 days, like during the winter months, like between now and the spring solstice. Okay. We have to really put our heads down and go to work on and continuing the work. Like this is not a rest period. Okay. Even though winter can be about hibernation, we may want to hibernate, but we're going to need to do the work still. Okay. So it's knowing that endurance, like what I kept hearing was like to get there, it's going to take endurance, stamina, think slow and steady, and persistence. So now when we bring in the swan, okay, because the swan came in the other day as also the card for the day. So this is the number 14 card in the tarot. So when I think of the 14, I think of karmic debt. I also think of temperance.
I gotta go, Laura. My personal care worker is here. See you
Okay.
later.
Talk
Bye,
to you
Sue.
soon. Bye.
Bye, Joan.
So, so you want to think of 2 to 3, swan. So you want to think of new dreams, realms that are about to open. So again, there's a continuation of a theme. It's just going from one to the next. So the swan, we see what in fairy tales. So here's the thing. We don't want to go into fairy tale land. We don't want to be thinking of Cinderella and Snow White. Okay, even though it's represented there, but it's also represented in folklore and ancient, and it's also considered an ancient, powerful totem. So it's also the largest, most graceful of the large waterfowl. But you don't mess with swans. Swans will nip you in the ass, and they are fiercely defensive of their nests. Okay, they will not hesitate to attack you. Okay, so what does this mean now moving forward? Okay, so if we're moving forward and we work with the prior 2 lessons, we can implement those lessons. We don't bypass, okay? We can expect increased sensitivities into the new realms, and the energies that are associated with them could be very awakening. So this is where new things, okay? And it doesn't necessarily mean something like a brand new thing. It could be just a new like carburetor adjustment or a new tool. Like in Japan, we talk a lot about Senju Kanen or Kuan Yin, 1,000 hands and 1,000 tools. Which tool could be just another tool, but yet you're still who you are. Okay, just adding one more thing that can help you in this awakening. So, and because swan, and this is why I'm feeling like this is a 2 or 3 month deal going through spring, the spring equinox. Okay, and it means solstice early. I meant spring equinox. It's because swan is a winter, cold weather loving bird. So winter is the most powerful time to manifest all these things. So for the next 2 or 3 months, as I stated earlier, during winter, we want to look for these new realms. We want to look for the sensitivities opening up. And it doesn't mean that we go out and we go, okay, what's going to just, it's just, if it shows up, have that awareness open. Like people say to me, Lori, you see hearts everywhere. I go, I don't go looking for them. I literally just sit at the table, I look down, and there it is. So it's having that awareness. It's not going, okay, I'm going to sit at this table. Where am I going to sit? And am I going to see hearts? It doesn't work that way. All right. So, so we just want to have that pay attention, not go out looking. We want to be able to pursue those new dreams before the winter passes. So this is where I feel like the next 3 months are crucial to the overall theme for the whole year. Okay. So this is where we want to, though, experiment, try new things, see what shows up without the need to control any outcomes or the need to control expectations or to create any expectations. Okay. This is where the balance. Okay. We don't abandon anything. We just look like maybe start writing poetry, this is where the arts come in, right? So this is where painting, that inner mystic, that inner child comes in and plays, gets inquisitive. You try new things. Okay. You also want to think of the ugly duckling story, right? So, which also says that we've gone through a lot of shit and it takes time for things to mature. So here's the caution button. So just because new stuff is opening up, because I am something, when something goes bing, I tend to go, let's go with it now, right? Versus just because new stuff is opening up does not mean we should rush into it. It can mean just sit and hibernate on it, sit and digest it, sit and process it, right? This is not a text message. Life doesn't operate like a text message. Life doesn't operate like Instagram, okay? So this is where that, as I said earlier, patience, grace, and balance are key. So this is where we want to tap into that inner child, that inner mystic, that poet, that dreamer, and maintain that balance of the water, air, fire, earth, right? So the swan can have that fire. That swan lives near water. That swan can fly. So it embodies all of the elements that are needed. So this is probably why I'm seeing this being and playing out as a very powerful totem moving forward. So how is this resonating for you, Sue?
Interesting. Sorry, I thought I just put this in, put my video on. I was having breakfast earlier, so that's why I was off. But yeah, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly clear.
Yeah, it's a lot of information. I find I'm audible, but I also am visual. So this is great to see as well as to hear. But it's going to take me time. It's like I say, I need to sit with it and process it. Some of it resonates. Some of it I'm not quite sure of. But yeah, I'm open to just building that awareness and that openness. That's what I'd really like to.
So what does resonate? So what is resonating with you?
Well, the Beetle, for one thing, that we went through a lot of shit, and to come out the other side, we needed to go through difficulty. We needed to persevere. We needed to be uncomfortable, and not necessarily understand why or the reasons behind it 100%, but just I guess follow our instincts in self-care and protection. Like you say, the wings are hard, they're shielding, they're protecting. The turtle, not so much, didn't quite fit in there with me so much, but I liked about, it's interesting, I was playing Scrabble with my husband the other night, was it 2 days ago? And like I had to take a photo of it because I had like 5 eyes on my out of 7. 5 letters out of 7 were the same, and it was the letter I. And it's like, where did this come from? And so that's the one thing that kind of jumped out at me is it's less about it's more about we and us, right, as a group. And the swan, it's interesting because my husband said he was walking the other day. I wasn't with him, but he was with a friend, and he heard this loud swooshing sound. He looked up and there was a swan flying. And like, how often do you see a swan flying? Really?
Yeah.
Especially this time of year, we're in the middle of winter, but it was just an unusual sight. And so that whole idea of how the swan brings together, because it is an air symbol near water, the fire, sorry, I lost that about the fire, but
Fire is primal.
Primal, okay.
It's the primal. You want to think of primal. So like what came to mind with the fire relation with swan is like it's a fierce protector of its nest, like fire, like, you know, mama bear syndrome. Like,
yes.
You know.
Yes. Okay. You know. But yes, the whole, and I love how the idea of trying new things without expectations. I you know, that judgment, that organizational mind comes into play all the time. So it's great to consider doing it without all that stuff. I mean, I love to journal and make notes and stuff, but I can also work harder at just feeling it in my body instead of trying to document it. You know, that's something I can work on.
Yeah, that's something to process right there. What you just said right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is like nothing is birthed, nothing is created in the light. So like this whole world that we had this facade with spiritual bypasses, I saw this was getting really bad, where this toxic, we call it like toxic positivity and toxic love and light that was starting to happen. And it almost became addictive. And I saw people even with histories of addiction actually getting that new addiction of love and light without working in the shadows. And to understand though, a flower isn't birthed in the light. Those beetles aren't birthed in the light. A baby is not birthed in the light. Nothing is birthed. Everything is birthed in the darkness. So a tree doesn't become birthed in the light. It is birthed in the darkness. If it's an embryo and it's in the light, it dies. So, you know, and I think that is something we, you know, and it's the same thing. Like I used a lot in the beginning for the first 6 months last year, talking about, and it's funny how instinctually I will start doing things and don't realize it. And then all of a sudden that theme will carry out, like, you know, like what I've been saying for like the last 3 months in the Facebook lives are just breathing out and composting what doesn't serve you into a Mother Earth. Like let her take that shit and turn it into something beautiful, because that's what she knows how to do, right? Letting go of that control. And so prior, similar thing happened about a year or so ago where I was talking about the whole cocooning and the butterfly and how, you know, why is it that we all want to be the butterfly, but nobody wants to do the work to become the butterfly? But do you realize you have to identify and let go of all the identity of the caterpillar? You actually have to liquefy. You have to go through all that physical transformation and metaphorical. And if you come out of the cocoon too soon, you die, right? So there's so much that nature can teach us if we just shut up.
Yeah.
You know, so that is really kind of what this whole cocooning process was supposed to teach us, you know, and those that are still fighting it, unfortunately, I am worried. I'm not trying to feed it, but I am worried about the amplification of the extremes, you know. So, and I'm hoping that if we just keep staying centered and grounded and keep doing our work, again, it's that being that oak tree, not the pine tree, you know. Because the oak tree can weather that storm, but a pine tree will snap, you know, and then may not recover.
Yes.
So, you know, so that's kind of what comes to mind. Yeah, a pine tree can bend more flexibly, but when you're dealing with major storms, it can't, it breaks. It can't handle strong storms very well. So, because I don't think we're out of this, I don't know how it is up there in Canada, but I keep hearing like we're going to have a housing crisis as a result of all of this. And I think the deficit here in this country is so out of control. and the incomes have gotten so out of control, like the diversity, like the yeah, you know what I mean. Division is so extreme now. Like you've got it, we're back to the 1920s. And so I think I keep hearing we're going to start seeing foreclosures. And so it's really going to depend on, I'm trying not to feed that because I think this just solidified why you don't feed that. You may have a premonition because if that takes hold, I kept hearing it's going to take hold like March, April, or May. Okay. That's going to start to happen. Well, if we are supposed to continue to do the work what we're doing for the next 3 months, that can possibly change. So that's why we don't feed that, even if we get like a premonition, something like that.
Yes.
You know, I just try to see with it and say, okay, let's just see how it goes. You know, and I go, oh, okay, well, actually, I was right about that. You know, so far, knock on wood, I was right about the U.S. election too. And even though I was very vague with what I said in there, and I did that for a reason because I knew the backlash I was going to get. You know, but yeah. So
Yeah.
So where are you at right now? Let's kind of close out. Let's see where you're at and what's kind of sitting with you. And what do you see that you feel like you can take with you moving forward for 2021?
Wow, there is a lot. It's a matter of not picking and choosing, but going with
Picking and choosing, by the way, is part of the lessons, right? That's discernment. That's the discernment piece.
Okay. All right. So it's a matter of sitting, I think, with it. I have the fortune in our lower, we live in a condo townhouse. In the lower level, there's no basement here. There's a TV area, and we have a little gas fireplace in that. But I have a hammock that I can string up from wall end to end. So I love to swing in my hammock.
Oh, lovely.
With my blanket and pillow, and not necessarily a book, but I find it really, I guess maybe it's some kind of utero thing. I don't know. I just find it really relaxing. I can doze off sometimes, but also, my mind, I just go into a different element. So I that's where I need to be to kind of process this information, I think. But
that's okay. That's actually a good way. It's very, because I'm one of those, like, I know even what I said here might even morph a little more, because even though I started this last night and I did it, I lit my jacuzzi tub, I sat in it and did the whole thing. And I said, okay, I go, but this is going to morph like it did last year. Not to the extreme like it did last year, where it was really heavy. I mean, I did a women's retreat like the second Sunday in January. And I did it as one of the things we did was a numerology forecast for them. And I go, shit, we got 20 women in here. And I'm looking at all their birth dates. And I'm like, how do I make this and spin this to be a positive when like 3/4 of them are going to have a difficult year?
Yeah. Oh, wow.
You know, and this was all before the pandemic. And I'm sitting there trying to find ways, because it's not just airing the shadow, it's trying to give them hope, you know? So I was trying to find, how can I give them hope, you know? So it was something I knew was going to be very hard for them. You know, like they're coming to a retreat to feel good. And here I am going, oh, by the way, you know, so
I've really enjoyed this first opportunity with you. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're more than welcome to join us again. So I look forward. So they won't be as long as they were today, obviously.
Yeah.
They'll probably be more like 45 minutes long versus like what we did today. But that was because it's the whole New Year thing. So
yes, thank you. It's a good one I caught for the first one.
Good. All right. Well, happy New Year to you.
Yes, you too. Thank you, Laura.
See you again. Have a great day. All right.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.